What's up guys and welcome. You are watching Fazi Fitness. So let's start this video with the latest physique update from Hunter Labrada. Exactly 22 days out of this year's men's open bodybuilding prejudging at the Olympia stage. So the way you show up at an Olympia qualifier and how you win that show, that certainly matters, especially for the top guys. So Nick won the New York Pro this year, but that just did not help him raise his stocks, especially in terms of his chances for fighting for the Olympia title. And we are witnessing that same trend with Hunter Labrada as well, after he won this year's Italy Pro just a couple of weeks back. So before this show, Hunter was almost in every list of the Olympia top 6 for this year. Because if we take a look at some of the predictions by guys like Dennis James, Chris Cormier, they had Hunter in the top 6 previously. But now both of them have swapped Hunter Labrada with Martin Fitzwater. And not that these predictions actually matter, but if someone's weaknesses, that is highlighted over and over again, it becomes a focal point for their next competition. And we have seen that happen over and over again in the past. So coming back to Hunter's update, he is in such a superb shape right now. After winning Italy Pro, he has stayed extremely regimented. So his calories right now are just under that maintenance phase, which means they are slowly gonna go down, chipping away little by little, especially in the next couple of weeks. And one thing is absolutely guaranteed, that Hunter is gonna be a lot more separated and a lot more conditioned at this year's Miss Olympia compared to what we saw last year, or even compared to what we saw at this year's Italy Pro. And the logic here is very simple. He has those extra 4 more weeks of dieting, and if it is just a matter of peaking right, then that can be easily fixed. That can be addressed. So what really matters is that Hunter shows up with more muscle on his frame. And what we saw at this year's Italy Pro, his back was considerably more thicker, more denser. His quads looked absolutely massive. His shoulders were more round, more 3D, and his arms were definitely looking a lot bigger. And that is what matters. So everybody keeps on talking about his Tempo Pro 2023 look. And if Hunter can bring that same look in terms of conditioning with the extra size that he has now, there is no reason to doubt why he can be in the first call out. And I still believe that he will be. Another day, another crazy update from Wesley, the reigning Arnold Classic champion, and the guy to look out for at this year's Mr. Olympia in Classic. And it seems like he's getting closer and closer to making his dream become a reality. So Wesley is definitely a better bodybuilder right now compared to his own previous version a few months ago, especially when he won his first ever Arnold, beating a guy like Ramon. And I have to say Wesley is kinda lucky, and a very plus point for him that he still had room to get bigger, to grow, to address his weak points, which are his hamstrings and glutes. And that can really be a game changer for him. So we all know Wesley doesn't have the biggest set of wheels, doesn't have the best sweeping quads in Classic right now. But still I would argue that he has one of the most separated ones in the entire Classic physique division at the moment. Now his upper body is definitely bigger than most of the guys, including possibly C-Bomb as well, especially if we talk about certain body parts. And he's definitely taller and wider than Ramon. So after watching his updates, there is absolutely no doubt that he is probably gonna be more shredded than what we saw him earlier this year at both the Arnolds, at the Arnold Ohio as well as Arnold UK as well. Now I'm sure all of us wanna see how much improvements Wesley has been able to make in those hamstrings and especially in his overall legs, because the upper body, the lines, the separation, the striations, and that too in every muscle group, that is one of the best in the division right now. His upper body in that back double biceps is absolutely nuts. So he will be looking to finish at least in that top 2 and hoping to win that show. But even a runner-up spot, that is gonna be such a huge accomplishment, because last year he was top 7 and that is gonna be a big jump.
Things are moving quite nicely in terms of progress for the Olympia. Prep is going very smooth. Of course, here and there you're tired and stuff, but that's normal. So today is going to be another higher carb day, which of course is always a good thing.
Just take a look at Ramondino's skull face, the face of death, and that is from this morning. So he is gonna be absolutely peeled to the bone and ripped to shreds once again. And I am sure he is most probably gonna be more dense, and he is gonna show up with a lot more mature physique than what we saw at this year's Arnold. Possibly even better than what we saw at the Olympia last year. So Ramon also made the sacrifice of leaving his hometown and trained here in Vegas at Flexos's gym. And not just once, twice this year during this year's Olympia prep. And the thing is, he learned from his mistakes from this year's Arnold prep, which he took kinda lightly, and that resulted in him losing the title, and he paid for it big time. But there are no more games being played here this time when it comes to this year's Olympia prep and Ramon's dedication as well. So the more you look at Ramon versus C-Bomb from last year's Miss Olympia, the more you realize how well Ramon compared to C-Bomb in almost all of the shots, except one, and that is C-Bomb's money shot, the side chest. No one can come even close to him in that shot. But the thing is, Ramon really closed that gap in almost every other shot, and he was even able to win the back double biceps against him. And this has been the longest prep for Ramon Dino, and that too by quite some margin. And so far he doesn't look burnt out by any means. So I'm sure we are all expecting him to show up guns blazing for this year's Miss Olympia in 3 weeks time. And I am sure he probably won't be giving so much space to Chris Bumstead, the reigning champion this time. Because even the Brazilian fans admit that Ramon Dino just gives way too much respect to Chris Bumstead, especially on the stage. And he doesn't have that killer instinct just yet. Next up, we have Blessing Avudibu's off-scene weight. And that is gonna make you go wow. Because that is another guy who is entering Samson Dauda and Big Rami's territory. Because those are the only two guys who were almost weighing above 330 pounds in the off-season. So it seems like Blessing is really serious about this off-season. He hasn't missed one beat since last year's Italy Pro, because that was his last show, and that was more than 1 year ago. And he has been grinding really hard ever since then. And judging by what we are seeing right now, he has no plans of competing anytime soon. So we won't see him on the bodybuilding stage in that post-Olympia tour. So that is gonna be another hard push for at least a few months before Blessing picks up a show and starts dieting down. And I have to say that is the right call. So Blessing's upper body, that is right where it needs to be. And he can even win shows with that same upper half as we have seen from him in the past. The only reason he places below everyone's expectations, that is because of his legs. First of all, they aren't up to the par anyway. And second of all, his legs just flatten out so damn hard the moment he drops the water. He loses all that density, all that thickness. So I was trying to find out his age, and on Google it says 32. Now if that is true, then he has plenty of time to put on some real mass, some real size on those wheels, and get back on the Olympia stage in the upcoming years. So bodybuilding is changing at such a fast pace, and people usually forget when a guy is out of the scene for a long time. So just to remind you guys how good Blessing Avudibu looked just 2 years ago at the New York Pro and at Indy Pro, here are some pictures and videos from those shows. Next up is the 22 days out physique update from John De Rosa, winner of this year's Tampa Pro, where he was able to beat a very young and a very great bodybuilder. I'm gonna say upcoming bodybuilder, Muhammad Fada. So when John started to have those injuries like the bicep tear, most of us thought that he's gonna be done. Because all those guys who he was competing against at the beginning of his career, guys like Von Morel, Max Charles, and all these other guys like Big Ramy, Dexter Jackson, and so many others, they are all retired by now. And if we take a look at some of the shows that John competed in a few years back, he wasn't getting any better, especially in terms of nailing his conditioning, and he was missing his peak in almost every other show. And the thing is, John has worked with a number of coaches, guys like Chris Acito, Neil Hill, but Patrick Tour, his current coach, he did one hell of a job with him, and he has improved from every single show, starting from Chicago Pro 2023 to Tampa Pro to placing top 4 at this year's Arnold, and then eventually winning a pro show at Tampa Pro this year. So anyone who has a great track record of coming in shredded in the last 2 years, show after show, I have to say it is gonna be a mistake to count him out. And now we have seen it in so many shows that John is very consistent when it comes to nailing his peak and coming in absolutely shredded. So the question right now is that, can he place in that top 10? And that too for the very first time in his career? Well, realistically speaking, I have to say no. Especially if everyone else, they come in at their 100%. But the thing is, that doesn't happen. When was the last time all the top 10 guys brought their absolute best? So the chances of him cracking top 10, they are certainly there. So hit the thumbs up button if you liked the video, and smash the subscribe button if you wanna come back for more. Thanks for watching.